Hello, welcome to Builderbot, a slightly British flavored Builderbot this time, as it's just me. I'm Matt Farmer. I am part of the Power Platform CAT team, and I'm here today to talk to you about custom analytics in Power Virtual Agents. So I'm going to assume that you have some knowledge about PVA and you've started using it. If you haven't, please go back in the YouTube channel and have a look at those earlier sessions, and then come back and see me now. So yes, we're going to talk about custom analytics in PVA today. So if you've used PVA at all, then you're probably aware that analytics are really, really important, because almost more than any service that I've used, iterative feedback on the bot you've deployed and how your customers are using it and how they are getting on with it is really important. You want to be able to make sure that they are getting the best value out of your bot, and you're making it continually successful. Absolutely the case. There's a little problem with that, though. Not so much a problem, but it's something that customers have asked about. So this is my demo bot, Matt bot, and I use this to help customers understand PVA. And it's got a fairly sorry set of analytics in there because it's not production; it's just used for testing. But the thing actually that I wanted to point out with this is those analytics are in the PVA portal. And everybody who wants to go in and have a look at those analytics and look at the statistics and data about topics at the moment needs to go into this portal. And if you're having real success with your bot, you want to share success about your robot pal, your PVA robot pal, with people like your manager, the wider business, and share data in a way that all of us are very familiar with, using modern tools to get that information out. So how can we do that? Well, there is a whole bunch of what we call trace information now exported for PVA, and I'll dig in and show you where that is in a bit. So if you're familiar with Dataverse, you'll find all of that trace information in Dataverse. But there's a lot of it, and it can be a bit complicated. And I think the feedback we get on that is, trace data is great. Thank you for giving this to me, PVA team. Do you reckon you can give me a bit of a steer on how to use it? Because it is quite complicated, and not everybody using PVA, isn't necessarily a developer and familiar with doing things like parsing JSON and extracting things from databases. If you are, great. But a lot of people want something a little bit more simple. Just to point out, all the trace information, it does have documentation on it, and we'll link to that in the show notes. But if you want to make it a bit easier, is there a way to do that? And then once you've had a look at, is there an easier way to do that? I mean, the other question that a customer will ask is, can you just do this for me? Isn't there an easier way I could make? Is there a low-code way I could get all this data? I assume it's similar for most customers. Can you help me out here, PVA CAT team? And so yeah, that's what this session is about, and I'm going to show you. And this is what we've built for customers. So here's some of the questions we actually use to frame it, not share it with my robot pal, but how do I share my bot success with my boss? Fundamentally, and that's a really common question from customers. I want to be able to pass this on to the head of my department to show them how the bot has been successful and let them dig into that data. How can I take the PVA trace data and turn it into something real? And I want to be able to do that in something that's simple and inexpensive. Lots of customers are using this, but they want a solution that is, if possible, low code. So here's what we built. It's a PVA custom analytics solution for Power BI, obviously part of the Power Platform, the oldest Power product. Hopefully, if you're using other Power Platform products, you're familiar with Power BI within your business. And here's what we do. We get PVA data out of Dataverse, and we get it ready to be consumed with what's called Power BI data flows. And I'll show you those in a minute. Then Power BI consumes those data flows and turns all the raw data that is in there into tables that you can use. So all the trace information is available as a table for you to build reports on. And then we also transform those trace tables into a data format that gives you a pre-created report format. So you're ready to go from the off. Just to give you a little idea of how it's working, but I will show in a second, it's as simple as this. We have Dataverse on the left. We go and get the data from it with data flows, and then we show it in Power BI. But we can go a bit further with this if we want to. So for example, we can add in Azure Data Lake. So this solution allows you to store data longer than the default retention period within Dataverse. Obviously, you can change the Dataverse retention period, but it's probably more cost effective to store in Data Lake long term. And if we have a really big data set, we can go even further. So we can plug in something like Azure Synapse to do the calculation and table generation based upon that data. But I'm not going to show you that right now. I'm just going to show you the simple solution with data flows and Power BI. Let's first look in Dataverse. Now, if you've used Dataverse at all, if you're using Power Platform, this is probably something you're completely familiar with, and we'll get past this quickly. But just to point out, the data that PVA generates is stored in a number of tables within Dataverse. You generally have to change this drop down from default to all to be able to see them. So that's an important thing people miss. But there's things like bot content there, which is the details of the topics that you have. And actually that's across bot content and a chatbot subcomponent. Chatbot is your list of chatbots. And then the other thing we have where we get most of the interesting data here is what we call conversation transcript. Now these, if I click on this, are a list of all the conversations, so the interactions your customers are having with your chatbot. There's a whole bunch of metadata in here, but there's also this column here. Where are we? Not metadata. Sorry, I have to cut this because I'm taking too long to find it. Content. Sorry, who's right at the top? Content is the trace information from your bot about all the conversations. So actually, when you jump into it, what you will find, and it's not going to give us the information, what you will find is a whole bunch of JSON. JavaScript object notation, if you're not familiar with that, it's a way of forming up data in a structured way so it can be parsed by computers. What we need to do is get all this data out and turn it into nice reports. So the next place we go is a tool called Power BI Data Flows. And data flows allows you to query data, extract it, and have it preset, ready to go, so that you can then export it to different Power BI reports and reuse it. There's a couple of reasons why we're using data flows here. One, it's a good kind of architecture practice to pull the data out first and then reuse it in the report. But the other one is that if we did want to do those more advanced architectures that I had the diagrams of earlier, then doing things like adding Azure Data Lake into this design is very easy if we use data flows. And then finally, what we do, data flows has a bunch of data in it. So let me just show you that actually before we move on. So if I look in here, what you will see is tables. Now, these are the tables we've extracted. And if I click on this one, for example, it gives you a whole bunch of columns that are there. But the easiest way to view it is actually to go into Edit. And what you'll see when we edit, if you've used Excel or you've used Power BI before, is something we call Power Query, which is a tool set that's used to query and transform data in a low-code way. And it's embedded within Power BI data flows. So this is actually showing the data that we're extracting. And as you can see, the content column here, which has all that really useful trace information, is in what we call JSON format. So we're going to take that and we're going to push it into a Power BI report. So let's open the report. So this is what you get. This is the report as it's generated. This is using a few of my test bots, so it's not exactly full of data. But what you should recognize, hopefully, when you're seeing this is basically it's very, very similar to the report format that we use in Power Virtual Agents itself. It's the same base report. And the reasoning for that is kind of because you want at least what you've got, right? So we're giving you the same report structure. What you can do in addition is you can filter for the different bots in your environment. So if you have multiple bots, you can pick the particular one you want to select, and it has this date range picker, which allows you to select a particular range in the report if you want to zero in on something. But we also have, the customer satisfaction report and the topics report that you would see in PVA all in one place. Ooh, it's going to take a few seconds to come up. There we go. Now, my data is a bit silly because it's a test bot, but hopefully your bot, when you try it with a real one, will look great. What I want you to notice on the side here, if I just flick back to summary, is whilst that's loading in, we have data here that's sessions and topics, and this is the core data that is used to fill out this report, right? All the other tables here are the trace information that PVA exports for you. So what you can do is you can either use the existing session and topic information. So this information, if I expand it, is actually, there's a whole bunch of information there, and it's sorted by the date, particular date we're talking about. So you can use that to produce additional queries, additional reports. But if you want to, you can also use this raw trace information. So for example, if you have particular interest about CSAT, customer satisfaction survey responses, you could just jump in here. I'll just show you quickly. If I wanted to, let's use intent recognition, because intent recognition is kind of an interesting one, right? So intent recognition is when PVA takes input from a customer and turns it into, I think you want to do this. And there's quite often things you can read into that data. So for example, if I expand it, so the columns are quite long named, just because they've been transformed. But you can see, for example, what people said, which is the trigger utterance, and the normalized trigger utterance. PVA normalizes what people say, doing things like spelling correction, and looking for ways in which they can make that phrase as normalized as possible, taking out capital letters, for example. So if you have an issue with one of your trigger phrases, you could come in here and actually have a look at what people said and what was happening. But you can also look at things like the score. So let's have a look. If we have a look at the score and drag that across, we can start building a table here, a report. Now that's super teeny tiny, so hopefully we can make it a little bit bigger. No, it's not going to let me. But take my word for it. Those are the score numbers here that we're seeing. The other thing we could do is bring across what was the normalized trigger utterance into this report. So we can start building up some pretty interesting data here that isn't available in the default reports, isn't available in PVA, but is exported for you so you can start digging into what's happening with your bot. And all the trace data we have is here, ready to go for you to start building these things. So you can really, meet whatever the particular requirement is your business is asking for in that report. Just to show you the data structure behind it, we can jump into Power Query again. And when we do, we'll see all the tables that we've generated popping up here in this report. There's quite a lot of them because we do a lot of transformations to make sure the data is in a format that's easy for you to use. Look at two different screens. And we have that trace information here. We have the raw data that we brought in. And we also have a bunch of aggregates that we generate based on that data to be able to give you those reports. So these are available for you to use as well. And that's it. So to actually install this, let's just show you. What you will do is, the link's in the deck, so I'll pick that up, but it's basically aka.ms/PVA Analytics. And it will bring you here. So this is the Power Virtual Agent samples GitHub. If you're not familiar with GitHub, don't worry. It's effectively a way to share source code and files. Microsoft uses it everywhere for all the kind of open source work we do. And it allows you to download files that Microsoft has worked on. And also, if you want to, submit fixes and changes and issues and things like that. So if you download this and you have an issue, you can raise one in GitHub. I'll get a notification and I can go in and have a look and help you with your issue. But there's a few files that you need to actually download. There is the report itself that you just saw me using. There is a JSON template that is basically just the template for the Power BI data flow that you just saw, and the README that is rendered here. That is instructions for how to actually set it up. So it's as simple as that. So if you're using PVA already, you have an existing one in production, you can go and give this a try and see, if it's beneficial to you, whether there's additional reports you would like. You can always come back to us with issues if there's additional reports you would like from this data, and share your chatbot success with your business. So that was the quick demo. Please feel free to click the link there at the bottom of the slide and go and give it a try and give us your feedback. And there's a lovely picture just to remind you what it could look like. Hopefully yours will look better than this because you'll have a lot more data going through it than the example ones I've set up. So that's it. That's PVA Custom Analytics. Please go and give it a try. The link is there. If you haven't tried PVA, then please go and give PVA a try. But please go back to our earlier Build-A-Bot series and get a bit more understanding of what PVA is and what it can do for your business. So I've been Matt Farmer. Thank you for joining Build-A-Bot this session. We'll be back with another Build-A-Bot soon. Please like and comment in the comment section below. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you've given this a try, and happy reporting. Thanks.